Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Second Chance Garden video. So here we have a bunch of Silver Pilea plants that I have been growing. This plant first appeared in my very first video called 5 Easy and Unique Houseplants. This was the first one that I showed to you. Then I started to get some questions about how to grow them, so I figured I'd do a video just focusing on Silver Pilea, and I hope that this will help you to grow your Silver Pilea. Now, before I get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for those who have subscribed to my channel. I am actually doing this purely out of my enjoyment, and I haven't really encouraged anybody to like my videos or, subscribe to my channel and all that stuff. Specifically, I would say on purpose. I just wanted to see how organically this channel will grow, so I really haven't done any promotional things or anything like that. So I am actually amazed that some people are subscribed to my channel, and I am very grateful for it. Now, let's get started. Okay, so the first two pots that you see right here are my mother plants, and I purchased these plants at, oh my god, maybe even, I believe, at one of those Kmart locations. I think like a year ago I was just walking by and I picked it up. Now back then these two plants and one more actually were in one pot, 4-inch pot. And well, you don't see the third one. The third one is at my home, and these two are in my office grow space. All right, and they're all doing fine. But as you might have noticed if you watched my first video, they're not looking so great here, but there's nothing wrong with it. These are not looking so bushy and lush or any of that stuff because I've pruned these plants heavily, and I will talk about the reason why I've done it. So I've had this plant for about a year or so, so I learned quite a bit about how to grow these plants during this time. I noticed that these are perennial plants, so they grow year after year after year. They don't die after a season. So yet some of the stems don't last forever. They actually do grow old, just like us. And you will start to see signs of aging, say every half a year or so. Some of them actually last up to, I would say, 9 months, 10 months, but that's about it. And that's the time to actually prune them a little bit. At first, I freaked out a little, thinking, ooh, what am I doing wrong? Because I started to see a couple of signs, and I just wanted to show those signs to you now. Let's see, I think this one is a good example. Right here. The brown tips. Right. So sometimes you see this in the other houseplants where, the main cause would be over watering. And it might be the case, but I think it goes further than that, meaning this one is experiencing a bit of like a sign of overwatering, a brown tip problem, because this particular leaf is getting old. As you can see, the rest of the plant, especially the new top growth, none of them are having all that issues. And because these require quite a bit of water to grow, so it keeps taking up water with no issues, so that the leaves are looking pretty healthy, as you can see. But the older leaves, they don't need that much of energy or water or fertilizing. They're just getting old. And that would tend to happen. That tend to happen at the bottom of the pot, because obviously they all start from the bottom. So the leaves at the bottom are the oldest. The leaves on the top, these are new. So when that starts to happen, so that's one of the signs actually. And the second sign is fading. The colors start to fade a bit, and I will show the difference hopefully with two different leaves. Here's a good example. this one right here is a new growth from fairly new stem. This is a young stem right here, and hasn't been around all that much. I think this could have been the, I don't know, like the third or fourth month of its existence, and this leaves are looking pretty green. However, one behind this one right here is slightly fading. I hope you can see the difference here. These two leaves, this one and this one. So this stem is a little bit on the older side, but again, the top is really healthy, so I didn't really chop it off. The ones that I chopped off, let me just show you which ones are chopped off by just getting even slightly closer. Here we go. This one's cut off, obviously. I've cut a few. This one's cut off. This one I cut off, old. And another one in the middle, and here's on side. I guess I just did the 360 now. All right, but let me show you an interesting part. Here's the pretty interesting one. I cut this stem because it was getting old. Then see what you see right to the left. That's a new growth coming from the soil level. So the new growth is not branching out from the old stem. It's coming right out of the soil. And by cutting this one, it probably triggered this one to start growing. Because I'm sure the plant's in shock. Oh my God, I'm getting cut, so I need to grow some more. And that's what is going on with this plants. And if I can find the right angle, towards the back, there's also another growth tip coming out, but it's kind of hard to point out. Let me see if I can point it. Not sure, but inside right there, there's another tip coming out, and that's new growth. And I would say it's been about 2 weeks or so since I did some massive pruning, and it only takes about a few weeks to start seeing these new growths. So it's pretty remarkable, and I can say that it's a pretty robust plant. That is the reason why that I sort of chose this plant to be one of 5 easy and unique houseplants to grow, because it's definitely forgiven for beginners. And you know, I definitely was a beginner back then when I purchased it, and they're still doing fine, so that's got to say something. I would say that it's very forgiving and robust, so that you can try your own method and see what works and what doesn't. So that's about pruning. And yeah, again, don't feel bad about pruning these plants. This will come back with vengeance. And the second one also, I mean, it's not looking too much right now, but that's all right. It's coming back. And maybe I'll do another video like a few weeks later and see where they're at. And you'll be surprised that it will be growing like crazy. All right, so I'm setting these mother plants aside so that we can talk about the rest of it, what I'm doing. Now, the ones on the table, I'm zooming in gradually as much as I can. These are grown on top of my freshwater fish tank. And if I can, I will put up a photo of the fish tank, and it's widely available online. Maybe not even online, maybe at a pet store. I haven't seen that before. But this fish tank was given to me as sort of like a gift, or it was just given to me. So I didn't seek out to buy that fish tank. I didn't even own the fish before. Now I do. There's one better. His name is Raven. He lives there in that 3-gallon tiny fish tank. And what that tank does is to circulate the water between the fish tank and the upper tray, so that the plants or herbs or whatever you want it to grow on top will get nutrients from fish tank water. The fish tank water tends to contain nitrogen and other things due to fish waste and the food that we feed fish with, and that can be a little toxic to the fish if you just don't clean the tank. But nitrogen in particular is something that the plants like to take up. So if the water circulates up to where the plants are, they would just take up the nitrogen and give the water back to the tank with less nitrogen. So in a way, the plants are doing filtering process. However, though, I must be very clear that that doesn't mean that you don't have to clean that fish tank. You do still have to clean that fish tank. The plants cannot just completely filter and clean the fish tank water for the fish. But those plants can benefit from fish tank water. And as you can see, they're all rooted. And yeah, it's about little shy of 2 weeks that I've made the cuttings. And all I did was I just stuck it in a tray that's sitting on top of the fish tank. And look how much of a roots they grew. And that's pretty remarkable. So the reason why I wanted to show these to you is to say that, you know, if you wanted to try your cuttings in a glass of water, or if you can, if you happen to have a freshwater fish tank, then you may want to try growing your cuttings there and see what happens. And most likely, I think you will succeed. Now, if you decided to grow them in a glass full of water, then that might take a little longer, because the water, whether you use tap water or rainwater, may not contain nitrogen as much as fish tank water would. So it might be a slower process. But nonetheless, I would say that you can still put your cuttings in water, just like you would do with pothos or other, you know, widely known sturdy houseplants. They will grow. So after this video, I'm going to just put them back in there and see how much they grow. I'm just kind of testing this. So yeah, I can just keep you posted on that one too. Now, moving on. The last part. So these are the ones that I'm doing. Well, let's zoom out a little bit. The regular cuttings. These are regular cuttings in these 3 pots, and well, I should have put them in order. This one's the oldest, and the other 2 are somewhat new. And these 2 are in the same Ziploc bag, and I put all of these on a heating mat. So unless you're making cuttings during the summertime, you definitely wanted to put these cuttings in a plastic bag first and foremost, or you could put in some kind of a plastic container with a lid. You can do that. Then place them on the heating mat. What a heating mat does is to keep the soil warm, and that's very important because the cuttings require a high level of moisture to succeed, in my opinion. So that means that the soil is kind of soggy at all times. It's not that soggy, but it's just moist. And the worst thing you can do to your plants or cuttings would be to keep soil wet and cold. That's a bad combination, and you do want to avoid it at all costs, because you will kill those plants. So by placing them on the heating mat, soil will be warm enough to promote the root growth for these plants, and that is the pretty much win-win combination that I would use for any cuttings. And this one to the left is the older one. I've had this for about 3 weeks or so. They're completely rooted, and as you can see though, compared to the other 2 pots, this one's got less leaves. See this? Right, because I've almost lost them all. And what I did wrong with this pot was to pretty much place this pot on the heating mat without really checking it time to time. Now, you don't have to check in with this pot like every single day. You can do it like maybe once a week or so, just to make sure that the plants are not getting completely cooked by the heating mat. And I didn't do that. I forgot it for like, I think I went on without like checking this plant for 10 days or something like that. And yeah, I let it cook for a little while, so that they lost all the leaves. They kind of turned completely brown and dropped. And I thought that, well, maybe there's no chance, but let me just get rid of the old dead leaves and you know, just make sure that the temperature is controlled time to time. So I would just keep the Ziploc, just part of it a little bit open, and I would have mist this pot with colder water just to keep the temperature to a certain level. Then they came back. As you can see, there's some new growth coming out. Like this one right here, almost died completely, but now you see a tiny leaves coming out. So this one's doing great now, and I better keep it up with it, that I should check this time to time. So all right, and these two are newer ones. These are kind of new, about a week and maybe like 8 days, 9 days old, and it's doing fine. They've been rooted. I tried to sort of pull this one out, and they're not coming out, so I know that these are rooted. Okay, but as you can see, you know, this one, since this one's tinier than the other one, I guess this got cooked a little bit too, so that I'm seeing some brown leaves and stuff like that. But I know that the main stems are all right, so I just have to keep an eye on it a little bit closely, so that I would check it like every few days or something to make sure that the inside the plastic bag is not too hot. Then this should be all right. But other than that, it's pretty easy to propagate these plants. And if you don't like the way the mother plant looks, you know, it's not that great right now, then you can make some cuttings. Like this one is a good one. It's a little bit taller, and it's got so many good tips on top. I could technically make even more cuttings. For now, I'm just leaving it as is, because I do have enough cuttings, as you can see, and I really don't need thousands of Silver Pilea sitting around in my office. So, but anyway, that's that about sort of pruning and propagating Silver Pilea. Now, I can talk a little bit about how to take care of them usually, meaning that not without doing anything drastic. How do you keep the Silver Pilea plants in general? I would say that this one does require some level of moist soil. It's okay to dry out time to time. They're totally fine with that, but you don't want it to go without watering for too long. Say like if there's a period of 5 days of like bone dry period, that would pretty much kill this plant. This plant does like moisture, humidity, and yeah, for that reason, it's okay that the topsoil is a little bit dry, but if you kind of, you know, fill your pot, you feel like there's some waters in there, don't worry. But you don't want to keep this plant in a bone dry condition for days. That would be bad. It's better off just overwatering. Say like if you're not going to be around for a week or so, then before you leave, you do want to water these plants somewhat heavily. Make sure you drain the pot though, but water thoroughly, then this will be fine for a week. It really depends on where you grow these plants to determine how often you should water. That is a very difficult question to answer. What my suggestion is that fill the pot, your pot, time to time. If you feel the weight enough that you feel that the moisture is there, like I said before, you don't need to water. But if you start to feel your pot being light, that is probably a good timing before it gets to, you know, be the stage where it's bone dry. You should water. For me, I normally bottom water these plants. So I have plastic trays. Basically, those are plastic containers from takeout food, and I use them as a tray. I fill them with water whenever I'm watering with. It's either, you know, the fish tank water, it could be just the regular tap water. I would just leave these pots in those trays for a good half an hour to even longer. Oftentimes I forget the fact that I'm bottom watering these plants, so I ended up leaving it for hours. But they seem to be fine as long as you drain pots before you put them back in the place where you keep these pots. Then you're good to go for at least a few days. So that's a tip about watering. Then I guess the next thing that we can talk about would be the light level. The plants need the light. Any plants would, to a certain level. Some plants love shady areas. This one in particular, I've heard that these are good in low light conditions, and they may be. but I put them in a bright location, not too bright. It doesn't get direct sunlight, but bright enough, closer to my south facing window, but not too close. So I would say about like a foot and a half away from my window, and they do fine there. If you can't give enough light to this plant, you may try in like mid-level lighting condition and see what happens. What I would guess is that the foliage may not be as dark as the ones that you would place them in a sunny location, but they may just survive. Again, these plants are pretty robust, so you might want to give it a try and see what type of light level is the best for your plants. I put them in a bright location and it does fine. Okay, so the last thing that I can probably talk about would be fertilizer. The fertilizer, I don't really use any commercial fertilizer for this plant at all. I do use fish tank water that contains nitrogen. That's about it. Other than that, I really don't give anything to this plant. But of course, not everybody has access to a freshwater fish tank, so what would you do? What I would suggest, maybe you would give commercial fertilizer a try. Maybe you start with half a dosage of suggested amount of fertilizer. It's either liquid fertilizer or pellets. Try with half dosage and give it, say, once a month. See how it goes. If it reacts positively to that, then you may keep up with it during growing season, spring to summer, maybe a bit of fall, but then you cut back to even further during the winter time. You might have to test it and see how your plants react and see how it goes. But as far as I can tell, my plants are doing just fine with some fish tank water. Then I don't think it requires the heavy fertilizing. Again, you do have to try it yourself to see what level would be good. All right, so I guess that's about it for Silver Pilea, and I hope this video was informative. But if there's anything that I haven't covered, please let me know, and I will do my best to answer those questions. Okay, well, as usual, thank you very much for watching.